Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 51 of the GuildMag podcast. We are back on a brand new day, and joining us this week, we have two Guild Wars 2 content creators, MMOINKS and RunJumpStomp. Say hey, guys.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello, hello.
How are we all today?
Doing well.
Excellent.
Excellent. So we've got a pretty big show today. As everyone undoubtedly knows, Out of the Shadows came out 2 days ago, and we've got a whole heap of stuff to talk about. But before we do that, I thought I'd put you two guys on the spot and give us a little introduction. Tell us about yourselves. Inks, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, I'm a Twitch streamer, and I have a YouTube channel where I make content about Guild Wars 2. A lot of news stuff, really, but also some guides and things like that that mostly revolve around Guild Wars 2 type content.
Awesome. And RunJumpStomp.
My name is Bill. I'm also a Twitch streamer. I have a YouTube channel, though I don't really update it very often. Mainly, I've been focusing on Twitch, and it's mostly a variety channel. But I do a lot of Guild Wars 2 stuff as well.
Excellent. And Aaron, plain old Aaron.
Yeah, I know. It's not very cool. I'm not the cool part this week, guys. Usually I'm the cool part, but
Well, that's debatable.
I've been outshone this week.
So yeah, this week we're talking all about Out of the Shadows. Before we get into that, we will do as we always do and go through the gem store, community news, all that shiz, get that out of the way before we get into the meat. So this week we have the Verdant Executor outfit. I nearly said it the wrong way. Nearly.
Executor.
Yeah, I nearly said that. And I think it looks pretty awesome. What do you guys think? Nice? Thumbs up?
I looked at it in the preview, like the preview window for my character, and it's really hard to tell if it looks good on my Norn in that window. Like some of the other outfits, you click on them and you're like, oh man, that looks really cool, buy now. And then this one I was like, oh, I can't tell if it looks good. And it's, one of the things I think would be really cool is if they had like a little instance area that had real lighting that you could go into to see what your character would look like. You could just sit there and mess with all the dyes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a better preview system, basically.
Yeah, like a room that you would actually go into where you could walk around and see what your character looked like. Yeah, because it doesn't really look like that because the lighting's not right.
Yeah, when you preview it, it tends to be like really bright in the preview window, and actually in game, you kind of, I guess, can miss some of the finer details that you get when you see it as bright as it is. But yeah, I covered up my kind of hideous Norn Druid with it. I instantly saw it. I was like, I've got to have that because it was wearing the old monk outfit, and I was like, oh, this just looks a bit too crap. So yeah, so I put this one on, dyed it. I like that it's dyeable actually. I really do like how dyeable it is. And the different male and female versions. I haven't actually seen the female version. Have any of you guys?
The female version's super different from the male version. I like the male version a lot better, relative to each gender. As far as how I like to set up my female characters, I wouldn't use the female one.
Fair enough.
I didn't see I didn't look at the female one either, but the thing that I noticed, is it the same outfit that Canuck is, I just said it wrong, Canuck is wearing?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. Like I saw, like, cause you only get to see him for a little bit, and then I was like, "Is that the same thing?" And all right, good to know that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to wear Canuck's outfit, it's in the gem store for 700 gems. Also in the gem store is the awesome Shining Blade glider / backpack combo that I know Sandra is super excited about. And the glider can be dyed as well, which is pretty cool. Thumbs up for that?
Yeah, I bought it.
Oh, really?
I mean, I have a lot of the... When gliders first came out, I was trying to keep up with buying all the gliders. There's just so many. I couldn't keep up with them all, but...
too many of this
it looks really cool. At one point, I guess we'll get to this in the story, but you encounter like a paratrooper who's wearing like the back piece.
Yeah.
And very, very cool looking. Very, very cool back item and very cool glider, actually.
Yeah,
Now,
well,
is the back thing dyeable?
I don't think the back thing. I don't. The glider bit is, but I don't think it carries over into the backpack part of it.
So
Yeah,
it
it's
changes
all-
color when you jump.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, I
Right.
think, but
They talked about this. It's a system that they would have to look into and rework because the backpack system and the glider system are two separate systems. So even though they look the same on your back, the glider is dyeable, and of course your back pieces aren't yet. So maybe that's something we'll see in the future. But for right now, because they're two separate systems, there's no way for them to just simply, flip a button and add that or something.
Yeah, there's no blanket switch.
Right.
Yeah, I bought the glider just for my Ranger because I just know gliders were working, and I was like, this is the one.
nice. So also in the gem store, well, not in the gem store, it came with kind of the gem store, is new embellished weapons. These have had, I guess, a mixed response with some people. What are your guys' thoughts on them? I personally think they're just a little bit too plain for my liking. Like, I like sparkly, all the effects and everything, and for me, they're just a little bit meh.
They're not very good.
Well,
I feel exactly the same way.
yeah, kind of. It's interesting because I feel like the last couple of sets that we've had from the BLC, the Black Line ticket, whatever. We had the Gallant set last time, which was their account bound. You can't trade those ones. That caused quite a ruckus, and they were kind of plain as well. They had the flintlock sort of look going for all of them, which sometimes works and sometimes didn't really. And it feels like that the Black Line ticket collections are going for more of this plain look rather than this super embellished, extravagant effects kind of thing, right? Like
Yeah.
legendary weapons have lots of effects.
Timekeeper weapon set essentially was the last one that was really
Yeah.
crazy.
Right. So, like, I don't know who I would use these on as a character. I think that's my biggest problem. If I had a character that was regal or encrusted in gems or something that went along with the theme of the weapon set, then I would be more likely to want to use something like this. But because I don't have a character that is remotely like that at all, it has a lot less appeal for wanting to spend a Black Line ticket on. Or
If I
money.
had like an 11-year-old character that was having a birthday party, then I would buy these weapons for it. But
I went through the show notes, and I'm not kidding. I wrote down like a little thing, a blurb for this is that this is what you would find in an 8-year-old's jewelry box. So exactly
Yeah.
what you were thinking.
yeah, they look like you got them at Party City for a quick Halloween costume.
Yeah.
They look like they've got rhinestones all over them. And the sad part is, I think they would look really good without the rhinestones. Like, I think the design underneath the rhinestones is pretty cool for some of them, but just the cheap little gems. Oh man,
Wow.
it's quite awful.
Indeed. So yeah, that's embellished weapons. If you do like the look of them, then go and grab yourself some Black Line tickets. And finally, some brand new hairstyles. Apparently I haven't really looked at these actually. According to Sandra or Aaron, whoever wrote this, cross race
Sandra.
styles.
Yes.
Do we like?
No. plain and simple. So, I didn't look at every single race combination myself. I only looked at Sylvari because that's what my Revenant is, even though Sura is my favorite race out of the group of them. But I was watching somebody else's video where they went through every single race. And I don't have a problem necessarily with the Norn and human sharing hairstyles. I think that's perfectly fine. But when it gets to Sylvari, Char, and Asura, the male and female hairstyles are exactly the same. So really, they made 3 new hairstyles and then just copied them over to both sexes. And in the Asura's case, 2 of the hairstyles are like braided long hair. It's very feminine hairstyle for your male Asura. I don't know. It looks very odd to me. Likewise, the Char, there's one where the Char have very long straight hair. The male Char actually has longer, straighter hair than the female Char, which is a little bit strange as well. And then they have this really crazy windswept, I don't even know what that
I
is
did see the
exactly.
Char comb over. The Char
Yeah.
comb over is roll bad.
So, like, I love that they're adding new hairstyles. Don't get me wrong. I think that's great. It gives more customization for your character. Each character can look a little more unique if you're not wearing a helmet. But I don't love this idea of that you made 3 hairstyles for a particular race, and then you just copied them from male and female. And if they're unisex hairstyles, sure, that works. But some of these are clearly more feminine or more male-oriented, and then they just... I don't know, they don't really connect quite as well when you do something like that, I think.
I can see that.
I'm still waiting for a good Norn hair. Like, the Norn stuff, always, none of the new Norn stuff with the, what's the item called? I forgot.
The Total Makeover Kit.
Total Makeover Kit. The Norn stuff all looks worse than what you can start with, at least when I look at it. Yet the Asura... Like my Asura guy that I use the Total Makeover Kit, he looks absolutely rad. My Char looks rad. My Norn, every time I go in there, I'm like, no, I'm just gonna stick with what I started with because these all look like crap.
See, I'm
for me.
the same. Oh, go on.
No, I'm
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say like I deliberately like the Verdant Executor outfit like with the helmet on just to cover up my Norn's hair. Like, yeah, that'll do me.
Yeah, and I don't wear helmets on like any of my characters because you know you work so hard on the face in the character creator. I can't wear a helmet. Like, what are you doing? But I agree with you about the Norn. The Norn definitely have like well, Lady Norn have pretty good options, but male Norn, oh man, it is barren out there.
Alright, and that is the gem store stuff. So quickly, some community news. So Community Showcase 15 was live this week. As always, there's some awesome artwork. And what I particularly liked was an original musical piece by Thornheart called Farewell to the Firstborn, which is basically like a tribute to Traherne. Either of you guys heard this? It's actually like a really awesome musical piece. It's about, I think, 8.5 minutes long. And it's really like it's a really nice way to kind of say goodbye to Traherne, and considering we didn't really get anything in game. And yeah, anyone listening, it will be in the show notes if you fancy a listen. And that's the news. So I guess let's get straight into why we're all here with Out of the Shadows. So we're going to cover kind of the story, go by step by step. First of all, give our impressions, kind of talk about what it means, all that kind of juicy lore goodness. So we will kick off with our overall impressions of it, taken as a whole, the story. I know a lot of people, myself included, were kind of super impressed with the quality of the content we got in the story. Not necessarily the length, but the actual quality of what was there. I was quite pleased with. Although, as I guess we'll talk about now, there are a lot of people saying, is it enough story-wise to keep us going for 2 to 3 months? As we've learned, the next episode is going to be a considerable while away yet. Indeed.
Well, I honestly, for me, I think it's enough. And no amount of story is going to last the 2 to 3 months. Yeah. People are going to blast through the story super fast. They always do. I did it in about 8 hours. And while it's short, I thought it was really good. I had a lot of fun with it. So what you got to ask yourself, or at least what I think people need to ask themselves, is, okay, there's not enough story there to last 2 or 3 months. Well, that was never going to happen. Is there enough other stuff there to last 2 or 3 months? And for me, I think that it's going to take me forever to do all the stuff that they added. And even if I do somehow magically manage to get all of that stuff done, there's still a million things to do in the game that I haven't done yet, so I'll be able to go do that. But I might not be as dedicated a Guild Wars 2 player as others. So
I really liked, here's the deal, the story was great, right? But it wasn't long enough for the release window, in my opinion. I thought it was going to be at least 2 times the length of Season 2's Living World episodes, and it clocked in at maybe a little longer, but more or less the same. Maybe even a little shorter than some specific episodes, like Echoes of the Past was a super long one. It's also, like... So, the first time through, it's fantastic. It's like, oh, I'm learning all this new stuff, but subsequent playthroughs of this step, guys, they're not fun. There's a lot of dialogue you kind of just have to sit through, and there's no way to skip it or anything like that. So that's, for subsequent playthroughs, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I found when I was completing the final story step that, because with all the server disconnects, I disconnected about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times. And I had to sit through that dialogue, 4 or 5 times. I was like, come on, let me kill stuff, let me get back to where I was. But yeah, so I guess if we go back to Air's Memorial, start from there. It was quite. I kind of forgot the way that we hadn't even really done anything to like say goodbye to Air. So I was kind of like, when I got that mail, I was like, oh yeah, a memorial for Air. That's kind of a nice way to kick off the season. So I thought overall it's like quite a nice send off to a character. It was nice to see that Garm is back in some sort of capacity, although probably not his kind of last appearance in any sort of meaningful story content. I feel like potentially,
maybe
potentially, yeah.
I'm hoping, and I know this doesn't make a lot of sense because a lot of the characters that is in Dragon Watch that I know they represent particular classes. For example, Marjorie's a Necro and Bram is a Guardian, although maybe he's going to be a Dragon Hunter-ish. So maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense that him and Garm would bond in new friendship. But I kind of hope that's what happens. I kind of hope that Garm at least follows him around, even though it doesn't make sense for a Guardian to have a pet. I know. I kind of hope, I don't know, that Bram and Garm kind of now bond over it, because in the story, and this was really kind of a heartbreaking point for me, actually. I usually don't get overly attached to fictional characters, in a video game, etc. It's very hard to deliver that, I think. But Garm coming back wounded and dirty and filthy and barely surviving the jungle himself, and then pining over Air's death, feeling this great loss himself, was quite moving. And then, of course, your character. And I don't know what it's like on all of the races, but for the male Sylvari, the voiceover delivery of like the speech, the eulogy, whatever you want to call it, was super well delivered. It like you could hear the emotion in the voice when the voiceover was done. It wasn't delivered flat or anything like that. I was really impressed with the delivery of those lines within the story.
Yeah.
Chat is kind of picking up on what I was kind of thinking. Like, since in Season 2, they did a lot of things with the professions that the professions couldn't do for players. And like Marjorie with her sword and stuff, and then in Heart of Thorns with Bram with the bow, and then those ended up turning into elite specializations. If they gave Garm to Bram, people would automatically jump on like, oh my god, Guardians are getting pets.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that necessarily would have to happen if they did that. Like, I think they shouldn't be afraid to do things that are unconventional profession-wise and not feel they have to follow through with it with an elite spec.
No,
I was thinking, what if Garm went with Rox? She's the one that brought him out of the jungle, and Rangers can have 2 pets, and she always has Frostbite with her. So there could be times where it would be more advantageous for her to, in the game mechanic kind of thing, have a wolf out, and she could swap pets, or she could have both of them tagging along with her. So maybe maybe her and Garm bonded on their trek out of the jungle.
That is a very good point. Like, the only reason I brought it up is I think it was Nut Whitebear that said it in the instance. I can't remember. Someone was like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll take care of Garm. We'll make sure that like his rest of his days in Hullbrack are like spent in peace or whatever."
It's a good point. Yeah. It feels like such a shame just to leave Garm there, pining for a new master or pining over his dead master. I don't know. It's sad.
I don't feel like that's Garm's game. Garm is Garm is an adventurer like Air was. I don't think he'd want to just hang out and get fat. I think I would agree with Bill that I think Rox is probably the most likely option for where Garm's going to go. I would totally be cool with her just having 2 pets tagging along. Like, for story purposes, I think that's fine. I don't think we have to expect anything out of ArenaNet for putting that in. But yeah, I agree that Rox is probably Garm's most likely next companion.
Although,
Yeah.
there's just want to add one thing here. I play a ranger, and I'm perfectly fine taking Garm on my own.
Excellent. So moving on from Garm, Destiny's Edge is gone, according to Ritlock, and Dragon's Watch is in its place. So Dragon's Watch beat out the names Eternity's Guard and the Unbroken. Was this the best choice?
Out of the 3 they gave us, yes.
Yeah, I agree. That's the one I voted for. It doesn't really matter at the end of the things, because in a year we'll just be used to that, whatever the name was.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of the names, so it doesn't matter to me.
No, I'm the same
I
boat
didn't
as
really
you.
like any of them either, for the record. I just felt like Dragon's Watch was the most applicable out of all of them, so that's why I decided to go with it. But I agree with you, Inks. I didn't like any of them they came up with.
And how long is it going to be before people stop saying Destiny's Edge 2.0?
Oh, I'm always gonna say it.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to be like a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm always gonna say it.
I refuse to say Dragon's Watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the last little point we've got in here is Scarl, the NPC, has some cool lore recaps, including the Edge of Destiny novel. And yeah, there was a lot of, especially like Air's backstory, in that, you know, for anyone who kind of wasn't aware of it, it was really, I think it was just a really little well done memorial to, you know, a fictional character. So yeah, anything else to say about Air's memorial?
Really well done instance. I thought the voiceover was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And it was the only thing. So like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Bram not being there. It makes sense that he's off blowing off steam, dealing with his mother's death in his own way. They were just getting close, and so I can understand why he's not there. But as we go through and you sort of learn about some of the other characters, the Pale Tree, and you ask about Zojia and Logan, I wish we would have had a little bit of FaceTime with those characters, and you just don't get it. You just get yeah, they're fine. They're just resting. It's cool. Move on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Bram not being there, because I think Bram not being there is going to be important, because otherwise, if you look at the story as a whole, there's not really any reason to not have Bram there. So I think wherever he is, he's going to end up, something important is going to end up happening to him, or he's going to do something important wherever he is to give us a good reason for him not being at the funeral. Because otherwise, from a writer's perspective, it's like a non-thing. Like, why didn't we just throw him in there? You know?
Yeah, I feel like my character should have been more concerned with where like Bram was. It's kind of just almost like brushed off, like, oh, he's just, you know, away blowing off steam somewhere, killing some stuff. Like,
I know,
he's just killing a bunch of stuff.
I'd be like,
they
more
said he went after GuildMag, or he went after the Sons of Svanir, or GuildMag's minions, or whatever. I'm guessing that in Chapter 2, maybe we won't see him for a while, but maybe when Chapter 3 comes out or something, we're going to find out, hey, Bram's been kidnapped, and we got to go rescue him. And we'll take a few episodes away from the characters that we really got to hang out with this time. So that way they have, and I hate to look at this as to, you know, in a business point of view, but it is a business. That means that's less dialogue that has to be recorded if they have less characters. So if they're splitting it up, so this episode we're with these guys, and this episode we're with these guys, that might be one of the ways to kind of trim down on this cast of characters that's kind of it's bursting at the seams.
Yeah, we were saying this last episode about how there's, you know, there was the old like Destiny's Edge characters, and then you've got these new Dragon's Watch. You know, there's a lot of, I guess,
there's a bit of an oversaturation of heroic characters.
Exactly.
Which I think is problematic for the story as a whole. They just can't, because the story steps are not long enough, like we talked about. Depending on the episodes, like so other episodes in the later, maybe they'll be longer. Hopefully they'll be longer, because this one felt shorter than at least some of, if not a good deal of the Living World Season 2 stories. At least to me it did. I mean, there's a lot of NPC dialogue, and you're talking to a lot of people that eats up a lot of time. Don't get me wrong, But as far as like steps in the story, I don't know. It felt short to me in that aspect, especially because we have to wait much longer than we used to have to wait for the next story bit.
I feel like this episode is more of a just kind of getting us rolling with the living world. So maybe, hopefully, future episodes, will have much more going on in them compared to. Not that there wasn't a lot going on in this one, but it was, as the first episode of a new season, it was probably very much a case of just like setting the stage for all the things to come.
Also, if we don't get a map next episode, then we can expect the episode to have significantly more in it. Like, the map was a big part of this episode, so that was probably why the instance content maybe wasn't so long.
That's very true.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so Resistance Fox in chat says Brahm is going to make a dramatic entrance, coming back, breaking GuildMag's tooth, becoming the leader of the Norn campaign to retake their homeland.
Does that mean we get to wear a GuildMag's tooth outfit?
Just a giant tooth.
Shards of his tooth. And
You're like a mascot.
This is a pretty popular theory that he's going to be the one who breaks the tooth that leads the Norn into a new era. I wonder when this will actually, if this does happen, I wonder when it will happen. We'll talk a little bit more, I guess, later on as to which dragon is popping his head up, and it's not GuildMag. So I do think that eventually will happen, though. I really do. I think Bram is the one to do that. And it's quite fitting, considering he's the son of Air.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's just basically
a legendary hero in her own right.
Yeah, carrying on Air's like commitment to wipe out all the Elder Dragons and whatnot. It would be quite fitting. So, moving on to the next story step, researching Ratanovus, where we meet back with Taimi, the adorable little Azura, who is now growing, according to ArenaNet devs. She has started to actually grow in game, which I think is a great little touch.
I didn't even notice, but yeah, that is a good
I didn't even notice.
Either.
I just saw on Reddit, like, someone asked, will Taimi be, getting bigger now with so much time passing? Like, she's actually already started to get bigger. So I think that's a really nice little touch. As always, there's the usual kind of malfunctioning golems, as always, that comes with Azura that we have to dispatch. And we meet up with Taimi, go into the sealed dragon lab that she's trying to hide from Flunt and the rest of them. And to get in, we have to solve a security puzzle that I completely, on the first thing where it says attempt to solve the puzzle, I was like, nope. And I just thought, like, it said, like, do exactly what you're told. So I was like, does this mean I don't solve the puzzle? So I was like, I thought I was doing the right thing. And I was like, oh, that that clearly wasn't.
So the puzzle is basically, those things that babies have where they put the shapes in? That's basically what the puzzle is.
Oh, nice.
And I thought
Simon Says.
Yeah, I thought they were very bad security measures, personally.
Yeah, like some other Asura is not going to be able to come along and figure out Simon Says, right?
I know, right?
Although, to be fair, I did fail it the first time, not because I hit the wrong button or whatever. It's like step 4 or something. It's like it goes flash, 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 and I was like, whoa, I was not ready for that. Because like the first one, I'm like, okay, red, yellow, blue. Okay, red, yellow, blue. Then the second one, third one comes up, it goes like, boop, 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 boop. And I was like, I missed it all. What? And then I failed.
The fourth and fifth ones are really quick.
It's funny because my first playthrough I did it perfectly, but when I went to do it on a live stream, I messed it up.
I skip it every time after, like, I did the puzzle the first time, and now I skip it every time.
I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and do it now. I thought I was being really clever, like, oh, I don't need to do this. This is doing the puzzles for idiots, and then it's like, oh no, you're meant to.
You get an achievement for skipping.
Yeah, you do. So that was.
Oh, really?
That was yeah. I can't remember what.
Excuse me, I have to log in real quick.
Yeah. And so yeah, when we get into the Dragon Lab, Taimi does a whole load of explaining some technical jargon and whatnot. One of the quotes that I put in here is the Northern Bloodstone dot is flaring up, which I thought was probably like the understatement of the year, considering what happens next.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was lots of. It was nice to kind of more of a kind of just dialogue heavy. Although I suppose the memorial was as well, but go on.
I thought I thought the section where you have to kill the chalk was really dumb. I was like, why is this even here? This is just like, oh guys, we don't have any combat in this mission. Let's drop some in.
Yeah, I think part of that is like you said. There's it's literally just dialogue, right? There's no combat unless you choose to skip the thing. And I maybe to show that this secret lab, this sealed off lab she has, isn't safe. It's not safe from.
Yeah.
But she makes a statement like she's killed a couple of them already. I would love to know how and with what. She's tiny. She has no robot to like help her fight anymore. Doesn't seem to have a weapon set necessarily.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say a Surin Mega Laser because that seems to be the answer to many killing related things.
Yeah, I guess. I think that the storytellers want you to embrace that she's a serious character, that she can take care of herself, that she is not this vulnerable child, which they tried to establish in Heart of Thorns as well. And I think they keep trying to reinforce that she's growing up. She's becoming an adult. She can defend herself.
Quite literally now.
But she's very much the opposite of Zojia in many ways. She's very Snaf-like in her approach to research. Zojia, for those who might not be aware, takes things rather safely. She doesn't take that many risks, where Snaf was a big risk taker, and Timey's a lot like that, using the blighting fluid and the chalk organ and all this kind of stuff, and your character is like, that doesn't seem like a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's fine. You got to take risks to stay ahead. It's okay.
I don't know about
gonna blow up in her face eventually, but
yeah,
I thought
I don't
that
know
was
about
really unsubtle foreshadowing. She's
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
going to have to, just like we're going to have to rescue Bram from the Sons of Svanir. We're going to have to rescue Timey from herself because she's going to do something and she's going to get captured, and we're going to get a community. Our backpack's going to start squawking at us, and it'll be chapter 4 or something. The search for Timey.
Yeah.
yeah.
I suppose it very much plays into the idea of she's trying to like prove that she's this adult as you're growing up, but obviously not quite there yet, sort of thing. She still probably needs our help now and again, which is probably where they'll be going with it. I think the really interesting thing with the Chak organ is her talking about how it converts ley energy into something else. Hopefully we get to find out, is that going to play like a big part in the story, or is that just sort of like flavor text, do we think, for this instance?
Hard to say now, but I feel like it will. I don't think it's something they would just drop in to be like, lol, here's this. I think it'll come back later.
yeah, I think this is more foreshadowing. We're gonna start to find out more and more how the magic actually works.
Yeah.
It sort of hints at, to me anyway, that the magic's sort of alive. It sort of has its own, not like artificial intelligence, but it doesn't just go anywhere at once. It goes to specific places. It's drawn to specific things. There's a
its
note,
own agenda, kind of.
There's a note that says when we killed Zaitan, like the magic went from ore all the way up to the bloodstone. It obviously went other places as well. But Timey talks about how it doesn't move in a particular pattern. It's going back and forth, and it doesn't just go to necessarily all to one place. But
It gravitates towards certain sources.
right, yeah.
Indeed.
So that should be interesting to get like further explanation on how that works.
And maybe it's converting it into. I remember reading something about the guy at the end, the Mersat. Spoilers.
Lazarus the Dyer.
Yeah. And that they have like this agony stuff that makes it really hard for us to hang out around him. And I was like, oh, is that like the agony from the fractals? But apparently it's a different agony. But maybe this is going to be the thing that protects us. Like maybe Timey is converting the ley line energy into this thing to protect us from the Mersat, even though she doesn't know that she's doing that yet.
So, all right. So, Mersat.
Here comes Aaron's moment.
So the Mersat are a race that have a magical spell called Spectral Agony, and in Guild Wars 1, this was a spell that just obliterated you, right? Like super mega health degeneration, massive flat damage. It was bad. And what you would do to counter this is you would get an infusion from a race of beings called the Seers, and they would infuse your armor against the Mersa, and then spectral poof, spectral agony doesn't hurt you anymore. Now, we don't have Seers anymore. They're like not a thing. We haven't seen one in 250 years. So the solution to this that I see personally is there once was an Asura named Zin, and he basically he made a synthetic Seer infusion, basically by working with the body of a Seer. He synthesized a resistance against spectral agony. And that's actually brought up in this episode, in a later part of the episode. And so since that was brought up by a character in this episode, it's brought up by Bennett in the new map. And since they brought that up, I think that's how we're going to end up countering this, is by bringing back that technology. And I think Bill's right in that I think it's going to involve the ley magic that they're focusing so much around in this story.
Indeed. So as we exit the Dragon Lab, then Canuck turns up on Anisa's business to bring back Cordicus, who's gone walkabouts on us, and this kind of sets off the rest of the episode. And I totally forgot what I was going to say about that. So yeah, go on.
No, go ahead.
No.
I was going to save you, but you
I was just going to move
footing.
on. Yeah. And then following that, we have our Morris Soulkeeper, who kind of turns up and offers us this position as what's the title? War Marshal? Is that War?
Yeah.
Marshal, that's the one.
Yeah.
It's Marshal of the Pact, which
War Marshal is Corna.
Yeah, which we gracefully decline. And they're
kind of rude about it a little bit.
Yeah, we were just like, no, dog, that's not.
Yeah.
We formed our own guild. We're good.
Yeah.
I don't
See you later.
I'm really glad they put that in though, because our character can't be the leader of the pack. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely glad they put that part in.
It's like asking Batman to join the Gotham police force.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was totally forgot what I was going to say again, for God's sake. So yeah, so one thing that Sandra kind of brings up in this, or kind of Aaron, I don't know, is that this almost felt kind of implied that Armora would become the default marshal, because we had one of our writers, Chris, kind of pretty much called this in his speculation beforehand. But I guess it's nice just to tie things off, after Turn's death, and kind of everything's kind of boxed off now. We're in our own little guild, and yeah, on we go to Blood and Stone. And so this is where things really kick off for the episode, I think it's fair to say, with an awesome little cinematic of the Bloodstone explosion / implosion. And tons of kind of, from here on, just Guild Wars 1 throwbacks galore, and the awesome new Bloodstone Fen map. So yeah, initial kind of thoughts on Blood and Stone, and just I guess Bloodstone Fen in general, because it's kind of hard to separate the story step from the map.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Like, so we're sailing into this explosion, right? It's big, it's huge. It messes up everybody, right? Everybody's dead except us. We're fine. That's kind of weird that we just kind of sailed right through this giant super mega explosion, and we were like, whoa, we're miraculously okay. That's great. What plot armor? But other than that, I didn't have a problem. That was my only gripe.
Nice.
I thought that cutscene when you're flying in, like, that was really good. And
yeah.
There's a moment where you can see the packed ship that you're on flying forward, and there's this giant wall of rock flying towards it, and it stops right in front of it and turns around. And at that point, I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Because I had already seen basically that cutscene in the preview.
Yeah.
And it really surprised me when that thing turned around and the explosion imploded instead and shrunk back down. That kind of blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering. I thought when it because it expanded and it implodes, and I thought there was going to be more, and then there wasn't. But yeah, I agree with you. It was a really cool, well-made, well-produced cutscene. Very solid stuff.
Indeed.
Yeah, I agree.
And so into the new Bloodstone Fen then. Awesome map, I have to say. I think visually probably one of the, I'm gonna say like maybe one of the best maps in Guild Wars 2 visually.
It blew me away when I exited the airship and I looked out over everything. Like they pulled that off really nicely, putting you up in the sky for your first time experiencing this map, so you could look out across the chaos that is the upper reaches. That was very, very well done.
Indeed. As Resistance Fox said in chat, when the explosion implodes, RJS's mind exploded. Excellent. So along with this episode, we get a brand new mastery line, which will hopefully, I guess, will be filled out in future episodes. We get one new mastery, Counter Magic, which is basically like the Guild Wars 2 version of Infusion against Spectral Agony, being able to counter that along with various other things that happen in the episode.
Well, it counters the volatile bloodstone magic, essentially, because in Guild Wars 1 the bloodstone was another thing that had very extreme magical effects. Like when you stood on it, the effect in Guild Wars 1 was that resurrection got all screwed up, but obviously that can be reinterpreted come Guild Wars 2, especially with the whole explosion and everything like that. So I don't know that the counter magic we're using is countering would counter spectral agony, which
it does counter like the Jade constructs. Essentially what Spectral Agony though, isn't it? Because it like gives you tons of conditions and basically just like depletes your health massively until you use counter magic.
And that could, like I'm saying, the counter magic could be what they give us to counter Spectral Agony, but I'm just not sure at this point.
The mastery is another reason that made me think that Timey was going to turn that ley energy into a thing to help us. So basically, so Timey gave us this new mastery, right? And now she's going to be able to upgrade it in the future. So when we get to chapter 6 or whatever, she'll be like, "Oh, hey, Commander," or Booba, or whatever it is that she calls us. She's gonna say, "I've found this way to stop the Mersat from smacking you around so much. Push minus on your keyboard." And you're going to be like, yes! And that's, I think, how they're going to fill out that big tab. One thing where I think that they messed up was it doesn't show that there's more lines to the mastery underneath. And I'm not saying that they should tell us what they are, but it would have just been cool if underneath that counter magic mastery there was another bar. And you were like, and just a blank bar that said, well, "We're going to do something with this later," and then people would, have all kinds of speculation going on with that.
Yeah, I can definitely feel you there. Something to look forward to, things like that.
They had something in the betas, or actually, it still works like this in the collections, like for Legendary Armor. They gray out a thing and say it's shrouded by the mists. So, I mean, that's something they could do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, with the Spectral Agony, Rowan, I would just be disappointed if they wrote off Spectral Agony like that. Just like, "Oh, hit this button, no big deal, you're good." Like that would be disappointing to me.
Well, I guess we'll wait and see. I'm pretty sure that's what was happening, because it just felt like the skill that the Jade construct used against you just felt like Spectral Agony did in Guild Wars 1. Because your health,
yeah, it's a very similar effect.
Like that.
Single tier.
Yeah.
For Spectral Agony.
So yeah, we also get to meet Squad Leader Bennett is back after yet another near miss on his life, and he actually recognised you rescuing him from SP. Now, is this actually true? Like, so Aaron, you haven't cleared or done much raiding, so I'm assuming you didn't get those dialogue like things.
I don't recall it, and I feel like it's something I would have remembered. So yeah, I think it's specific to only people who have beaten the raid.
Which I think isn't. Really...
I didn't beat the raid, and when I looked at the show notes, I was very confused by what you wrote there. So I think that that's not like that must be something that only is said to people who finished the raid.
Which is a nice touch.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice touch because your character essentially has more experience of what's meant to be going on. You know, once you've completed the raid with all the white mantle. And yeah. So, anything else to say about Blood and Stone?
Just that squad leader Bennett had like a lot of interesting things to say, despite the fact that he's just like, Bennett, you need to go home. You've been on enough adventures to last 10 lifetimes. You get to go home. Calm down.
So when you guys encountered Bennett, does he not tell you about the raids and stuff like that?
He has recaps you can go through. They're optional recaps, but they're definitely the recaps are there for everybody. But I think his little bit of dialogue that's like, "Oh, BT Dubs, thank you for saving me." That's only for people who've saved him.
Oh, interesting.
And when I walked up to him, he was standing there with another NPC, and the other NPC was like, "Man, you are really lucky." And he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm constantly almost dead." And the guy's like, "Yeah, you're constantly almost dead."
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to give him a nickname, and Bennett doesn't want to. Isn't that like jinxing it? And he's like,
"Yeah,
that's not how the eternal alchemy works."
Yeah.
Yeah, Bennett needs to go home and get a pension. Like he's done his. I
was going to retire tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, so that needs to be a thing where eventually Bennett gets killed, and the commander is sitting there. Boobah's standing there with him, and he's like, "One day before retirement."
I know, right? He's like,
Totally gonna happen now. Okay, so following that, we might as well stick these together. So we then have Reaper of Magic, which basically gives us access. We go and kill some cleric, and we get access to this new unbound magic, essentially like map currency for Bloodstone Fen. Which gives you you can actually buy some pretty cool stuff with it. One thing I really like is the glider skills you can get for Unbound Magic, which I haven't actually unlocked any of them yet. But I really like that whilst you're gliding, you can actually do something useful, I guess, in Bloodstone Fen. With the attacks on, I guess, whatever's below you. Have you guys seen any of the stuff you can buy with Unbound Magic? Anything?
Yeah, I've unlocked 3 of them.
Oh, really?
And was it 3? No, I've unlocked 2 because you start with 1 for free, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I've unlocked 2 of them, and they're both ground-targeted skills, and you can target things from so far away that you can't even see what it is you're attacking. I'm really confused as to why they didn't make this a mastery. And the only reason that I can think of that they didn't want to make this a mastery is because they're afraid that the players would say, "Oh my God, you guys are making me grind for masteries again." And so, like when Heart of Thorns came out and everybody griped about the masteries, maybe they're gun shy now. Because it felt like masteries to me.
I mean, you have to grind one for the story anyway before you can move on.
Yeah.
That takes about 10 minutes though, because it's so little XP.
Yeah. I think the same thing.
I think they didn't want to confine like 4 tiers of mastery to one map. Like, because this is a mastery, I'm pretty sure you can only train it on that map, right?
Yeah.
On Bloodstone.
It's a Heart of Thorns mastery, so you should just be able to train it in like Heart of Thorns.
Yeah.
Okay. Then in that case, I don't know, because it seems like it should be a mastery. I agree with you. I've heard that complaint from like everyone. Like, why isn't this a mastery? So yeah, I don't know.
I think part of the problem is anytime they add a mastery, they usually add an extra point or 2. They give you an overabundance of mastery points so that you don't have to go and do gold in the.
They didn't have room on this map to do that.
So there's only room for 2 mastery points, and the first one costs 1 point, and if the second one, if there was more than 1, then it would have to cost more than 1 point. And where are you going to put all these mastery points? On the map, right? The map's just not large. As good as the map is, it's just not large enough to hold, a lot of mastery points, I guess.
It might be the smallest map in the game. It's quite a small map.
I think it's quite small, but like vertically,
as far as explorable areas go.
I think vertically it makes up for it, but in terms of just, I guess,
just like border
yeah.
branches. It's quite a small
And not only is it a small map, but at the same time, you are in the air so much that you can see really, really far. There's not things that are in your way, like a mountain between you and your destination. So you can see really far, and that makes the map seem even smaller than it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So one thing I want to come back to from chat is Pinky Fluff says, I found it weird talking about how squad leader Bennett recognizes you in SP. I found it weird that they nodded to the fact that Raiders saved him, but yet your character acts like there was nothing to worry about, such as the hole in the wall where Lazarus was at. Like, was that info not important to share? And there was some piece of dialogue, I forget whereabouts it was, but your character was like, oh, I don't really know what's going on. Where, you know, my character's been through all the raids, I know about the White Mantle, about Lazarus, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they don't make that connection, do they?
Yeah, no. Which, you know, I guess would have been nice considering they've, you know, gone to the trouble of Bennett recognizing you. Would have been nice to maybe have another separate bit of dialogue there for you, where you maybe know a little bit more about what's going on because, you know, we just do. But yeah. So, speaking of the giant crater, moving into a Shadow's Deeds, where we finally get to the bottom of the crater in the Cavern of Unseen Lights, and we essentially learn through gathering up these bloodstone shards that an unknown figure of light has absorbed a huge amount of the power that's in the bloodstone, and that caused that weird explosion, implosion. Did anyone think for a second it was actually Cordicus?
No.
No.
No, definitely not.
It's funny too because your character floats that idea. There's like, could Cordicus have absorbed all this magic? And it's like, no way.
No.
Cordicus is too much of a weasel. He'd find somebody to do it for him.
Yeah.
Codicus likes being Codicus. I definitely see that.
Absolutely. And then we also get to meet back with Keith, who tries to kind of reconcile with us. Would you guys trust her? You know, blaming it on the whole Mordramoth thing? I think it's a very kind of easy, you know. Oh, Mordramoth made me do it.
I really liked how stern our character is with her.
Yeah.
In this part, like, I don't know about you guys. I played through my first time on my Sylvari male Sylvari. Man, that voice actor does disappointed in someone very well. Like, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I really like that we're not getting our break at all.
Gives her a big lecture on that. You know, that's the time you need to trust your friends the most, right?
Yeah.
It's when you need to lean on them the most, not turn your back, etc. I mean, I think you're gonna mend the fence with her. I think you're gonna, it's funny. Marjorie does not want to mend the fence with anybody. She trusts no one.
Marjorie's catty.
Yeah, very much so. But I don't know. There's a little insight there too with how the Pale Tree is doing, and Keith is very much like this lost child, right? She doesn't know what to do with herself, so she kind of sulks around in the shadows and whatever the case is. She's looking for a new journey. She's looking for insight from her mother, from the Pale Tree, and the Pale Tree is not strong enough yet to give her that insight, so she just feels kind of lost, alone. In many respects, it'll be interesting to see, how that develops going forward.
Yeah.
I'm also really bummed that we didn't get anything from Keith regarding Fowlin's death in Heart of Thorns, because I feel like that's a massive oversight.
For Keith, I'm personally torn. I think that her character is actually trying to do the right thing. I don't think she's secretly like a bad guy or anything. But she is so rash to make decisions that she's going to be the reason that a character in Dragon's Watch gets killed. I think she's going to be the cause of somebody dying. And then Marjorie's going to go bananas.
Or that, or Keith dies. I see either of those two outcomes being a thing. Because I agree with Inks. I think we're going to end up being like, you're all right. We're probably going to have some bonding moment, like I don't know, we set some charges together or something. That's usually what they do in Guild Wars 2, right? But yeah, I think either Kate is going to die, and we're going to be like, oh, turns out I miss her, or what you said, she's going to cause someone's death, and we're going to be like, listen, you need to go sort yourself out because this isn't okay. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens with Kate, but yeah, just really sad that we didn't get anything from her regarding Phelan at all. They just kind of let that whole romance plot fizzle out completely.
Indeed. And so, I guess we'll move on to the final story bit, the Confessor's Stronghold. Which note says here, oops, Codicus got pwned. And so Lazarus here to take back the mantle. So we finally get kind of reveal of Lazarus in this shortish cutscene, which then, as we were saying kind of before we went live, kind of cuts into the actual game world, and you can't actually really see him up there.
Yeah, that was really poorly done. The transition from cutscene to gameplay, and then the perspective they have you and at as opposed to Lazarus was just. I thought they dropped the ball on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're kind of building up to something a bit more epic in future episodes with him. I think one of the maybe even bigger reveals than Lazarus, because by now most people were expecting, knew about Lazarus, and were expecting him to feature in this episode. The bigger, I argue, reveal is Timy's kind of revelation that Primordus is essentially awake, has awoken. I thought that was actually really well done, because it kind of just says it and then it just goes silent for a good 10-20 seconds before like the you completed this story step pops up, and I was just like, what? Because I think a lot of people were expecting us to kind of be pushed towards the Crystal Desert and Kralkatorrik. Those were the major theories that were floating around, and nobody was particularly talking about Primordus all that much. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Which is strange, because we really should have been thinking about Primordus, because all the information in Timy's Dragon Lab was regarding Primordus for the most part. I mean, she mentions the Kralkatorrik and Primordus were the two dragons that the Radanovans were focusing on, because the Exalted were, of course, worried about Kralkatorrik, but the Radanovans' primary research is all about Primordus. So it would make sense that Primordus would be the next dragon that we'd tackle, because we have a lot of information on how to tackle him now.
I do have a question about this, and I didn't play much Guild Wars 1, so let me just ask this about Primordus, and hopefully the people, I'm sure that there's some who are watching are confused too. Is he like the main dragon? Is he like the boss?
They're equivalent entities. All the dragons are equivalent entities. Primordus was the first one to awaken during this cycle of Elder Dragons.
All right, that's why I was confused, because I read that he was the first. So, because with him being the first, that made me nervous that, whoa, it feels like we're rushing towards the end if we're going after him. But if they're all kind of equal on this, then all right, I'm very happy to hear that it's Primordus.
Primordus and his minions in general are the reason that the Asura no longer live underground. That's what forced them to the surface in the first place. Yeah. He's without a doubt my favorite dragon. So I'm kind of happy that we're going after him. I thought, like a lot of people, that Kralkatorrik would be next. Ritlock still has a beef with Kralkatorrik. We know that Glint's legacy probably isn't overly fond of Kralkatorrik, whenever or whatever happens with the egg. And obviously the Exalted, not overly fond of Kralkatorrik either, right? So I thought he was going to be next. A little bit of a surprise that Primordus is next, but it should be really interesting going forward in that Primordus is underground. He's in the underbelly of Tyria. So I wonder if we're going to get a lot more maps where they have that underground tier to it. We spend a lot of time in Core Tyria on the surface, and Primordus is underneath us, supposedly battling the stone dwarves this whole time. But so then, what has happened to the dwarves? Are they all dead? Are they all gone? Well, obviously, we know Jalus is gone because the Revenant can summon him. But what about the rest of the race? Should be really great. Should be really fun.
Yeah, if we're spending a lot of time underground, then we probably won't be using our gliders very much.
Yeah.
of gliding in the giant like the caverns underground are vast. They're very large.
Yeah, if they make it anything like this pit we've got in Bloodstone Fen or the ley line chamber in Dry Top,
yeah.
I could definitely see gliding still being very much a thing, especially with the ley line gliding mastery. What I always try to keep in mind with the living story and the expansion stories going forward is that Season 2, and they really haven't come back to this since Season 2, but Season 2 dropped several hints that maybe killing the Elder Dragons isn't such a smart idea for the overall game plan. So I'm still kind of clinging to the notion that we're going to resolve the Elder Dragon issue some other way. I don't know what that could possibly be, because they don't seem to be able... Like, they're intelligent, but they don't seem to want to listen to reason. Like, they have this hunger that they need to consume. And I don't know what that resolution would be, but I'm convinced that we're not going to murder all of the Elder Dragons.
No, I agree. Yeah, I would say it seems quite fitting with Primordus now, with us just kind of coming across Ratanovus and the whole underground Azuran city that once was underground. And there's nothing to say we can't be trying to tackle threats from both like Primordus and Kralkatorrik, simultaneously, as a way to kind of speed up how much we have to get through, like seeing all these Elder Dragons interacting with them, because we'd still have GuildMag, Primordus, Kralkatorrik, Bubbles to go. So there's go on.
Yeah, and when we were talking about Bram potentially leading us into GuildMag earlier, I was thinking
Let's just get them all on board, all 4 at once.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, because this game's been out for 4 years, and we're only down 2 out of 6 dragons. Like, if they want to explore the full potential of this universe, we need to get the dragons out the way plot-wise real fast, because there's so much more that the Guild Wars universe has to offer besides the Elder Dragons. So I'm definitely on board with tackling multiple dragons at once, and I definitely think they're going to do that. I think they're going to bring 2, 3 at a time on board. And chat was actually mentioning that I think the water dragon's going to be last. I do think that they're going to at least do something special in terms of the unknown water dragon at this time.
I just hope we don't have to do underwater combat for that. I hate underwater combat so much.
There's this interesting theory as well that with Lazarus consuming the energy from this first bloodstone that we've encountered, which has consumed magic from both dragons that we've killed, that his overall plot, or one of his overall goals, would be to go to the other bloodstones that exist, maybe encourage us to kill the dragons, or maybe he kills dragons himself somehow, and because he wants to consume this energy, he wants to go to the bloodstones and repeat this process over and over again. He seems to be pretty powerful already. He has
he's already sat on steroids for sure.
Yeah, he already has this. He has this great line where he's like, "You can come under my shelter or my protection or something, and if you don't, everybody else can burn." And then he basically kills all the weapons that are there that are supporting Caudicus, right? And then there's this whole idea of Caudicus really just wants to be the ruler of Kryta, right? He wants the throne, and he thought the White Mantle would give him that. And clearly, there's all these pages and books and everything that there was constantly this secondary objective. They were just using Caudicus for his political means, so to speak. So it's going to be a really interesting story as it involves, because we do have the threat of a dragon. We do have to worry about what is Lazarus doing. Canuck, because he wants his freedom from a niece, is chasing Caudicus, and Caudicus is chasing Lazarus. So in turn, we're chasing both of them. Should be really great to see how that balances out.
We have this supercharged dragon egg that's kind of just hanging out. Like, hey guys, I can come in at any time. Just wait for me. Okay, thanks.
So
that was something I was kind of bummed about, is that they left Heart of Thorns on like, here's the egg and it's got magic in it, and then they come back this season like, yeah, we're not really going to go into that. Right. That was kind of a bummer.
I think it's going to come in later chapters this season.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. As Bramimon says in chat, sorry if I've just butchered your name, Lazarus sure didn't really have an interest in Kryta. He made that pretty clear.
Lazarus is thinking bigger, much bigger than Kryta.
Yeah, so it may be that for the next few episodes he kind of just, we don't see much Lazarus, and he takes like a backseat to everything else that's going on, and then kind of pops up again in a couple of episodes' time.
Basically, going back to what Inks was talking about with how many plot threads we have open right now, I don't see how they can tell the story they're setting up unless these episodes get way bigger. Because we just have so much going on right now. It's insane.
Yeah. So let's move on to talk a little bit more about Bloodstone Fen as a map. Guild Wars 1 throwbacks galore. Obviously, we get to see the actual Bloodstone again, although, well, I guess part of it, since the rest
Bloodstone
of it's kind of, everywhere else. Justicar Hablion makes a return. He's the first character in the franchise to be in both games.
Well, I mean that's not entirely true. Ogden's Stonehealer.
Well,
he's in multiple games.
The first I think fightable character.
And Hablion is technically only a ghost. He's not.
Don't ruin this bit of trivia, Aaron.
Adelbern's ghost is also in the Ascalon dungeon.
Well, yeah.
But they don't do it a lot. Let's say that they don't do it a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought another bit of trivia. You could ruin this one if you want as well. Steve Blum, who voices Ritlock, voiced him in Guild Wars 1. So there's a
that's true. I got nothing.
Well, there we go then. And so obviously the return of Jade Constructs, which was super cool to see. Again,
they stayed true to the original game's design pretty well with the Jade Constructs. I was really impressed.
Yeah,
I like them a lot.
I really like them as well.
Fighting them, different story, but as far as how they look, great.
And we've touched on most of the other stuff. We haven't talked about actually the events in the map. It's quite, I guess, an event dense map. There's stuff going on relatively frequently, and I haven't come across an event that I haven't enjoyed yet. They've all been pretty engaging.
There's none that drag, there's none that aren't very interactive. They're all pretty, shoot stuff. They're all pretty shoot stuff events, which I'm down with.
The shield one
really like the one. Oh, go ahead, Inks.
The shield one can be a little frustrating, where she has a shield and it degenerates over time. You can't let the guys get in, but it's really hard to not let there's so many of them for you to stop. Yeah. And the more people who come, the worse it gets. The scale might be a little crazy on that one. It fails a lot.
I almost feel like they've set that up so that you can use your flying abilities to take out. I don't know this, but it might be that they're expecting us to because every time that it happens, the cleric is in a bubble in a low area, and they're surrounded by high areas. And so I think maybe we're supposed to run up, and I've tried it, but I'm the only one who seems to be doing that, not just doing it on the ground, where you run up high and then you jump and you float over and drop the bombs, because I think that they do more damage than your regular attacks. I almost think that's the way you're supposed to do it, but I haven't been successful fighting that yet.
The main reason I think it's so hard, because I agree with you guys, it's a really hard event, is because the couriers who carry the Bloodstone magic to the cleric, they all have break bars. And they all have pretty beefy break bars, and that makes it really tough to control stuff getting it, because one person can't police a break bar. It's just not going to happen unless you're specifically spec'd for CC, and I don't think anyone's going to be like, yeah, this is my cleric event character. Nobody's doing that. So I definitely agree with you guys that it's pretty freaking hard, and the only times I've completed it is when there's just been a massive Zerg in the game couldn't possibly compete.
Right.
Yeah. So anything else we want to say about that map as a whole before we move on to other things?
I really liked the event where you had to the Jade guys who are trying to break down the stalactites, and that was really fun. Whereas we'd start way up high, and then you'd float down to the next level, fight another guy, then float down to another level and fight another guy, and then finally it culminated with the Veil Guardian, because they basically just had to steal that instead of make something new, I guess. But I thought it was a really fun event.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Hableon event. Just seeing Hableon back was great. I mean, it's a pretty simple fight, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
I went down more times than I should have done in that.
I still don't know. I still don't know how he throws you in the air. Someone was saying it's about 33%. You need to slow DPS and then break his bar real quick, and then the bubbles or whatever will appear. But I've killed him maybe a dozen times, and I still haven't seen anybody get thrown up into the air or whatever for that. So I guess I'm not doing it right. We're killing him too quickly. But
yeah, I haven't picked up too much on like all of the intricate mechanics on a lot of the events either. One thing I did want to say is the crater it's less of a crater and more of a pit in ground zero of the explosion. Basically, that blew my mind when I first came across it. I was like, oh my god, this is verticality right here, ladies and gentlemen.
And the giant,
especially with the ley lines going all over the place.
The giant like ley line roller coaster you can ride just straight back to the top again. It's so, like the things like that in the map, like all the the ley lines and the updrafts are just so like it's a really great use of the gliding mastery track. I feel like.
And I only maxed out my gliding mastery literally last week, so I was very
perfect timing.
that I managed to do that.
So that is Bloodstone Fen. So we're going to move things over and talk about some of the other things that came with this patch, because there's still way more stuff than just the new map and the new episode story. So first up, changes to fractals. We got a brand new fractal, the Chaos Isles. Have you guys played this fractal?
Yes.
Yep.
I have not yet.
Awesome. So what do you guys think? I thought visually it actually looks pretty cool, the kind of combination of all different fractals coming together. Gameplay wise, I've seen some people have mixed reactions, I think. I know, I guess so I've only played it actually at a fairly low level. I've yet to go into it at a high level, but at the very low level it was super quick to do, as most low level fractals are. But I think it was a nice new fractal. I'm looking forward to seeing like the ones that come after this in this new story arc that's coming with this new fractal.
Yeah,
I thought it was well. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, okay. Really quick. I played it at a low level. I played it at 13. That's the entry level, just because I wanted to get it. We were streaming it last night, and I just wanted to get in and see what it was all about. I didn't have a problem with all the fights being easy, because obviously I was on skill 13. But I thought it was kind of short. So that's really my only. But it looked really cool, like how it amalgamates all the different fractals. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. And my main character only has an agony resistance of I think like 38 or something, or no, 43 I think it is, if that's even a number that you can get. So I just went on the level 13 as well, just to check it out. It was funny because I was streaming and somebody came with me, but they didn't know that I was doing the new fractal, and so they popped in and they were like, "Oh, okay, Cliffside." And then they tried running up that little platform, and I was like, "Where are you going? We got to go this other way." And oh, guys, look, there's a piece of paper over here. Let's go find all the papers. Which, by the way, not to go back to Bloodstone Fen, I love looking for those papers. Every time I see one of those little pieces of paper, I'd be like, "Oh my God, paper!" And I'd go running after it, and I'm having fun looking for all those little pieces.
Lots of paper in this patch.
Yeah. Somebody definitely dropped their book bag, it seems like. But again, I've only played the first tier. I thought it was fun. I like the boss fight at the end. I thought that was really cool, and I also like. I can see how they can easily ramp up the difficulty of that. Maybe less squares will be safe at the higher levels, so that would be really cool. Nice. Maybe he can push you into those squares or something like that. I think that's a really neat boss fight. And then the part that they stole from Snowblind, I like that, and it didn't work for. Or we failed it the first time, the snowblind thing,
So did we.
because we didn't realize each player has to do something. It can't be like Jeff, the awesome nerd who plays 400 fractals a day,
Frickin'
runs
Jeff.
through and lights them all while everybody else just, oh, look at all the shiny stuff. So you have to coordinate, and I thought that was really great.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I liked the boss fight on the platforms, and I did the same thing when we spawned in. Actually, I was like, "This is Cliffside. Are we in the wrong fractal? What's going on?" And then the one person that was with us that had done it before and was just like, "No, we're good. Just keep going." But with that boss fight you were talking about, if you also saw the weights on chains that are hanging above the platform, those are actually from the Molten Facility fractal, and. Yeah, I'd be willing to bet at higher levels those will start dropping in tandem with the squares lighting up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and Netco in chat says high level last boss can be hard. These players still don't know what to do yet. So yeah, I will have to go and check it out before our next show. So we're also introduced to this mysterious Azura in the Chaos Isles. Any predictions, thoughts on, what that might be, who that might be, or what on earth might be going on?
I don't have any theories at this time.
I did, but I haven't played the fractal, so I don't know if it gives you more hints as to who he is or who he isn't.
I didn't feel like it gave us any hints.
It's not really. He kind of just mocks you for the whole fractal.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the original Harpy fractal, the uncategorized, has you fight this raving Asura. And he flees. You don't actually kill him in that fractal. And if you're doing the legendary for the Dreamer, so the precursor is the Lover, part of that is he drops a letter to Dessa. And if you take this letter back to Dessa for the legendary quest, you get a trophy called Dessa's Sadness. And we know from Dessa's character that she had a lover, a boyfriend, or something that was lost in fractals. So the theory goes that the raving Asura is Dessa's boyfriend, and that this new mysterious Asura could possibly be him as well, since he escaped during the Harpy fractal, and now we're seeing him revisit it in a deeper storyline, perhaps.
That's
that
a pretty
sounds
awesome theory.
Really cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I was hoping it was Counselor Flunt just so that we could beat him up because I hate that guy, but I like yours better.
Yeah, my only, because he was dissing us so much, my only theory was that it might be Gad from Guild Wars 1, but I like your theory better.
Yeah, I really like that as well, because we do have story ties to tie up with Dessa that have gone back since, was it in the Fractured update they introduced? I can't remember.
Yeah,
that was the only fractal update before this one. I mean, that introduced new fractals before this one, I think, so it must have been.
It's Flunt. I actually love Flunt as a character. I know he's such a...
He's a great hateable character.
He's such a typical Asura. He's full of himself. He thinks he's the best thing ever. He doesn't take well to Timey, who's a smarty pants, basically. He's very sort of condescending as an Asura. He's such typical Asura, right? That's what I love about Flunt.
Yeah, Timey actually isn't a very good example of an Asura. Flunt is much more accurate as to how the average Asura is going to be.
And don't take my dislike for him. Go ahead, Dink.
Timey is very smart and smarmy, and she's like Zosha has rubbed off on her. She's very Zosha-like, right, in that respect. But Flunt is like your regular, typical Asura. He's not necessarily the smartest Asura that lives, but he believes he is because they just have that self-confidence about themselves that, I am the greatest Asura ever, right? And I don't know. He just has that voice that carries over really well, and surely he's an unlikable character, but in a great way,
Yeah. Don't take my saying that I don't like Flunt for not liking the character. That's why he's such a great character.
Right.
Because I hate him so much.
Yeah, he's a great character to hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So sticking with fractals, have either of you guys played the kind of revamped Snowblind and Swamp fractals? I actually haven't yet.
We streamed them last night, both of them.
Any good?
Yeah, Snowblind has been trimmed down quite a bit. God, the fight against Lornar at the end, so much quicker, so much easier. I don't know that I necessarily agree with how easy they've made it, but it's definitely quicker. But yeah, it was like stupidly easy. You know how he used to have like 8 phases? He has 2 now. He only goes up on the ledge, I think, twice. And that's it. So the Lornar fight is a lot quicker. They start at the bottom of the Snowblind Fractal now instead of all the way up at the top, so you don't have to run down. So that's really nice. And other than that, it was pretty much the same. And then with the Swamp Fractal, getting the Wisps to the area is the same. But after that, you have to fight the Moss Man, and he's been trimmed down quite a bit. He's a lot easier now. And then you also have to fight Bloomhunger, and Bloomhunger is the big bad boss of Swamp Fractal now, not Moss Man. And at least that's what I played. Maybe there's alternate versions of it, but I think that's just how it's going to be now. It's just going to be that every time. And the Bloomhunger fight is actually really interesting. You have to like take wisps and put them in other wisp brackets, and then that'll do like an AoE that makes the Bloomhunger vulnerable. It's really cool. So I definitely recommend both of those to people. I think my favorite rework is the Swamp Fractal. I think they did a pretty good job with it.
So I have 2 questions. My first question about the Swamp Fractal is, I read in the patch notes it said that at the beginning you spawn with a rifle of some kind.
So we didn't use them, but the rifles you're referring to, you can at your other party, because there's 3 wisps, right? 5 party members. I believe the rifles are for people who want to help the runners get to the center, and they can use those to. I didn't pick up any of the rifles, so I don't know what skills are on them, but there might be skills to like help you avoid CC, stability, or maybe they're just to help pick off enemies very quickly. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But they're there to help the runners, basically.
All right. And my second question is about the Snowblind Fractal. That, first off, that's my favorite fractal, just because of the way that they've done snow in the game. It's really beautiful. It looks really great. Probably better than any other game that I've ever played that has snow in it. It just looks really good. But my question is that the fight with the Elemental, that's like the second boss in there. I always feel like my team figures out what has to happen, and I'm running around bumbling like an idiot. Has that changed at all? Because I'm always like, well, I can't see anything, and I'm supposed to run over to someplace, and I can't figure it out. And has that changed at all, or is that exactly the same?
So it's changed a little bit in that you now light the fires with the special ability button. But other than that, I think the fires are still operating under the same mechanics. Basically, you want to stand by a fire so you don't build up hypothermia so that you can see, and you want to keep the fires lit so that you can see, and you just not auto attack, but you DPS the center obelisk thing, and that is the gist of that fight. It hasn't changed. If it's changed, it wasn't very much, because I didn't personally note it. The only difference I noted was that you can now condition and crit the center elemental source, which is nice.
At higher levels, the big challenge in that fight used to be his elementals. His elementals would wreck you if you didn't deal with them very quickly. And they made those more forgiving at higher levels. So they're still an annoyance. You still need to deal with them, but there's not quite as many. So it makes the higher levels a little bit different. What's really
a little more anyway.
Right. What's great about all of these fractals, the 2 that got reworked, Swampland and Snowblind, just like Cliffside, which has seen some balance changes, the higher you get in the fractal, the more mechanics the bosses actually get. It's not like tons of new mechanics, but it's a couple new mechanics, and I think that really sets the tone better for making it more challenging, rather than just adding hit points or just making him a larger sponge or something like that. He actually gets, I say he, but the bosses actually get, more abilities the higher you go, and those abilities might do different things. For example, in Cliffside, they add the circles get much larger that he lays down and stuff like that. So I love that idea. I've been asking for that. Like, my Trins has some extra stuff at Fractal 100 that she doesn't have at 50, let's say. And I think that's important when you add difficulty, when you add a scaling to it, that you're going a higher level. You know, at a base level, it's kind of simplistic, level 13, 10, whatever the case is. When you get to 75 and 80 and 90 and 100, certainly it should be much harder. And not just because they do more damage to you and they take less damage, but because there's more mechanics and the fight is more intricate. And I'm glad that they're going that route more and more with these redesigns.
Yeah, I completely agree. I definitely feel like the way to, like, making something more difficult to me is also about making it more engaging, because
Right.
you know, it's like it should force you to like actually pay attention more rather than just, you know, like sit there and spam one or whatever for an entire fight. So yeah, and I think like their philosophy has been to make fractals more engaging, but also like make them shorter. I think they said I think it was in the AMA. I can't quite remember. So don't quote me on that. But that's kind of been their philosophy for the redesign so far.
Yeah, they basically said they're trying to streamline fractals a lot more, and that they've got sort of a new agenda when it comes to fractals, and they're gonna, you know, they're pouring a lot more dedication into each fractal than they used to.
Yeah, it's great to see. And the new fractal kind of UI as well, I think is a really nice little addition.
Yeah, it's going to
so
make
good.
me do a lot more fractals, honestly. Like, because every single time that I would go and do a fractal, I'd be like, all right, first off, I hit H, and then I go to my achievements. All right, which ones are, okay, good. Okay, let's do it and do 7. Oh, crap, I forgot which one was it. Okay, H, and then go down. All right, so now I've got the dailies. And it was just a pain. And you know what I noticed, and I think what they did is they looked at the wiki page, the way that the wiki page is laid out for the fractals to tell you which one's which. They stole it, and then they just put that right in the game, and I'm really happy that they did that.
The UI is great.
Absolutely. And the fact that I could go on about the UI forever, but yeah, it's just a really nice, just one of those really nice additions. So anything else you want to mention about fractals before we move on?
Just for the record, I don't fractal a whole lot. I just went in yesterday to explore the new reworks and stuff.
There we
Do you think that you're gonna spend more time in fractals?
As far as my average gameplay time, probably not. But I do agree with you guys that the new UI was sorely needed and is really good.
Oh, and you know what we didn't even talk about at all is the fact that they changed, not inscriptions, what's the word I'm looking for?
Oh, infusions.
Oh,
Yeah.
infusions on amulets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just on amulets, like, they've really simplified it, and that was my biggest complaint with fractals from the beginning was, how the hell do I get a +7? I gotta go to a different island, and I gotta do this, and, you know, do a cartwheel and a handstand, and pull out my abacus, and it was way too confusing, especially for someone who doesn't play the game non-stop. So I'm happy that they simplified that.
Yeah,
I think because on my rings and my armor and my weapons, my infusion slots are still there, but on your amulet you have like
an enrichment slot.
An enrichment slot now, yeah.
Great.
And I logged in because I logged into my main character, and it was like, "Yo, dog, have one of your infusions back. You don't need it anymore." And I was like, "Thanks for that." Now I have this useless infusion with me.
Well, you can trade the infusions in, so you don't have to worry about that too much. You can trade it back into fractal pieces. They went back through, which is really great. It used to be, so if you got lucky and you got a +5/+5 infusion for a ghostly infusion, let's say, which gives an aura as well, or you did the super venture box stuff where you got mottos infusions. Those were all +5/+5, and you could also craft a bunch in the forge, which were rather expensive. But if you wanted to min-max, you could do that sort of thing. They changed all that now so that those are all +5/+9s, which makes them much more rewarding.
Yeah.
And it makes it much easier to upgrade. It's expensive, don't get me wrong, but it's much easier to upgrade if you want those extra stats. If you want more vitality or power or condition, etc. You can now get +5 of a stat and +7 or +9 for the agony resistance. So that's a big plus.
And you're not limited by whether or not it's like an offensive or defensive slot either, which is great.
Yeah, you no longer have to worry about that at all.
So yeah, that is Fractals. So the other kind of big thing was the Revenge of the Capricorn PvP map. So we'll spend a couple of minutes on this because normally we're mostly a PvE show, but I did go and play it because it's just such an awesome PvP map. You know, to see like the spirit of old LA back, and I don't do a lot of PvP, but I do quite enjoy it. And this new map, it's just awesome. Like, there's no other way to describe it. It's kind of, I guess, a relatively small map, but it kind of means there's a lot of action, a lot of kind of little skirmishes and fights going on in it. And yeah, it's just great. Have you guys had a chance to play it?
I have not.
Aaron.
I know the big PvPer in the room with my Deliac rank. No, I haven't played it, but I do want to, because I agree with you that I want to set foot on the old turf once again.
I haven't played it either, but I'm definitely going to. The map looks really cool, and I like the mechanic where... So basically the mechanic is you ring a bell, and then the people of the town start shooting cannons back at the ship. This ghost ship, I guess it is. I don't know. I'm sure Aaron will jump in with some lore here in a second. But if you ring the bell multiple times in a row, you get more points than you would if, let's say, Inks and I are on opposite teams. If he rings the bell and then I ring the bell, we would get a certain amount of points. But if he rings the bell twice in a row, he gets more points than he would have.
Right.
And I think that makes for good comebacks. So you could be getting your tail kicked, and then suddenly you're like, all right, guys, let's get our stuff together. And suddenly we start getting our stuff together, and we hit 3 bells in a row, and now we're back in the game. And I think that's really cool.
The bell is the bell activates about every 3 minutes or so, and it's a capture point just like the other one. So whoever can capture and hold the bell can then get those points and activate it. The map is gorgeous. I love the map. I love the aesthetics of it. I played only like 1 or 2 matches, but it's really fun to fight on. I'm looking forward to doing more. There's a special set of achievements for those achievement hunters out there, but it is limited. You need to complete the achievements before the end of the next PvP season, which should probably start in about a month or so.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so if you're going to do those achievements, if you're interested in it, you can't do them in a custom arena, which only makes logical sense because then you can cheat and give each other all the achievements. You need to play in unranked, and then when seasons come back, you need to actually play in ranked. It's going to be one of the ranked maps that you play. So if you want those achievements, then you should work on those sooner rather than later.
Indeed.
Definitely.
And I think there's a title. It's like I forget what the title's called, but there's a special title for completing the achievements.
Bell ringer.
It's like pirate something, or I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. Something to do with pirates. Yeah, something to do with pirates. I don't know.
Something else with PvP that really is the big change for me is that you can queue outside of the mists. That's so huge. I'm going to do a lot more PvP than I ever would before. My only complaint is I still got to switch my weapons when I get there, and it drives me bananas. Because it doesn't remember, like it remembers everything else about my character in PvP. But when I go there, I'm like, all right, I got to unequip this and equip that and make sure I put them in the right spot so that I got the right sigil on the right thing. But I'm really happy about that change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does sound like it could get a lot more people in.
And once again, new kind of PvP UI. It's just a little bit slicker when you actually enter a game. There's kind of nice little animations and stuff now. So more UI work in this patch that's just nice to see, I guess. And yeah, so we will jump quickly into some of the other quality of life changes that came with this patch. So one of the big things I was happy about was the /surrender for raiding, especially for all those times where it's just time to give up.
So it's a great feature. I'm waiting for that video where somebody's trying to do Eternal in Wing 1 and they surrender on purpose just to kill themselves so nobody else can get the title. That's such a terrible thing, but you know that somebody's gonna
happen.
use it.
I'm waiting for the video that's going to go up where somebody has a boss down to 1% and somebody surrenders because they're just a jerk.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I raid with Salt, and that's exactly something we would do to each other.
All I know is I have a lot of nostalgia tied to the resign mechanic. Guild Wars 1,
yeah.
so many resigns.
I forgot that was even a thing in Guild Wars 1 to you.
Oh yeah,
Say it then, but yeah.
and I hear it's just tied to raids, right? Like you couldn't do it in a
Right.
dungeon or a
Yeah.
fractal. Yeah.
Just raids. Yeah.
But definitely a nice little improvement there. Another thing that got people excited is the salvage all option on salvage kits.
How did
Oh
we
my
talk
God.
for 2 hours without mentioning this? I don't know.
I know, right?
So pumped about salvage all. It's a godsend. As somebody who does a lot of farming of bags that contain things, salvage all is just, I've been waiting for this since Silver Waste came out, basically. So good.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous to say, but I almost feel like it completely changes the game. Like it's very hyperbolic to say that, but whenever I do anything in PvE, I open my inventory afterwards and I'm like, oh my god, why do I even play this? And now I just right click and all done. And I'm so happy about that. It's a huge change to the game.
And it's the fact that it came about almost as like a whim, because I can't remember the name of the developer that implemented it, but I think this was in the AMA. But he was basically like, "Oh, I just did this on some downtime between projects. Like I had nothing to do, so I thought, oh, I'll just implement, salvage all." And the fact like it was like it may not have even ever happened if like he hadn't have had that downtime.
I feel like I need to take that person out to a fancy lunch. Because to put this in perspective for people, how long it can take to manage inventory is I farmed up 5,000 champ bags last year, and I wanted to open them all at the same time. And to go through all that loot, salvaging and stuff like that, that took 4.5 hours to open 5,000 bags. So just imagine if I had salvaged all, that we could probably have cut that, like even more than cut that in half. We could have probably trimmed that down to like an hour and a half. So
Well, and something they're looking at, but I mean, who knows when we'll see it. The other compliment is, like you were saying, opening all those boxes, and that's something they have mentioned that they're not able to do just yet, but they are looking for a solution to that. So can you imagine? You can open all the boxes; it'll limit you to whatever your space is, and then you'll just salvage it all, and
Yeah.
it will.
it's 2 clicks,
The game just plays itself.
No, just do it in one click. You right click, you hit salvage all, and it automatically opens them, salvages them, and puts them in your bank. I mean,
Nice.
because nobody wants to mess with it. This is not Diablo. I don't want to have to make sure that this thing's here and then this little playing Tetris with my inventory.
But yeah, I'm so excited because I think what you were saying, Inks, about solving the bag problem. I think salvage all is part of solving the bag problem.
Yes.
Definitely. But now they just need, to take it to the bags.
Huge quality of life thing, though.
Yeah. Speaking of kind of inventory management, so there's now searchable material tab in the bank as well. Nice and a little change.
Yeah, there's so much crap in there now. I'm really glad they added that.
And another big thing, well, big for me at least, is the health percentages shown on health bars, which I was super kind of excited to see. Just because, I mean, I know a fair few people used to use, just like Guild Wars 2 Taco, just to kind of determine at what point certain mechanics would happen in raids. I mean, that can just go out the window now. No more Taco for anyone now that we just can see the percentage straight up. But it's just a nice, and I think we were saying this before the show, like we found ourselves just looking at health bars more than I have before, and like checking the percentage of even in open world stuff. I'm like, oh, it's not like 10% now or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. I didn't realize how much I would love this, and then when I logged into the game and Sandra showed me the option and I turned it on, I was like, I love this way more than is warranted. Like I shouldn't love it as much as I do, but it's one of the highlights of the patch for me, which is weird.
It's interesting too, because in a 5-man party, I don't know about raids. I don't think in a raid group it really works, but in a 5-man party, increasing your allies' health bar as well. Will give you a percentage of your allies.
I did notice that.
You can see, if you're playing a druid, let's say, or if you're playing a healer for some reason, and you're the one who spams a little bit of heal out to people, then you can see, 20%, I better help them out a little bit, So.
Gotta maintain
Wait, it shows it on their health bar in the portrait. Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome. I play druid, so that's rad.
Yeah, and like you said, Inks, I haven't seen whether they do it in like a 50-person squad or not, but I could see that being limiting on frame rate and performance.
Sure. Yeah.
So that definitely, if it doesn't do that in that scenario, I would understand.
It's just a nice little thing. I love the percentage.
Yeah. It's just nice. It's just nice. There's no other way. It's just nice, isn't it? And then, guild decoration functionality. So we now have guild anthems and guild monuments. I haven't actually played with these yet. Have either of you guys?
I haven't.
A little bit. So first of all, they increased the amount of decorations you can place to 2,000. Considering the size of the guild hall, that's probably still not quite enough. But I mean, it's double of what it was, which is really nice. There's also, you can erase a single item now, rather than it used to be a headache where it's like, oh, I accidentally placed this item in this wrong spot, and then you end up deleting 5 things by accident instead of just the one you wanted. So that's great. And then you have these monuments, which you can, when you place the monument down, grave markers, some signposts, there's like a statue, I think, you can place up to 140 characters in there. And what this is really great for, it's good for a lot of things, but over the years since I've been a content creator, it's happened a few times now where somebody shares a story of a guild member who's passed away, unfortunately, and they want to remember them in a special way, and they usually have a guild event in game, and or whatever the case is. And I think this is a great way now to, and I've seen people say this on Reddit and on the forums, where they will place these grave markers down that have like a memorial to that particular person. It's just a great way to remember, those guild members who are no longer with them or whatever. On the lighter side of things, you have guild anthems, which are great. There's 15 different guild anthems, and depending on a number of things you do in game, it will play your guild anthem afterwards. If you kill a world boss at your guild spawn, for example, it plays the guild anthem. Plays a little tune. If you win a PvP match that is like you're there as a team, it will play your guild anthem. There's a bunch of situations in which your guild anthem plays, and it's just a nice little extra thing. You hear it in game. If you're listening to the sound, you say, "It's my guild that just did that." It's, I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It is super awesome.
Speaking of the audio, they also made it, and it was pretty hidden in the patch notes, that you can now make it so that the combat music doesn't turn on. So you can be running around and listening to the actual ambient music. And I gotta say that the music in Guild Wars 2 is by far one of the best. And I turn it off because I don't want to listen to the combat music most of the time. I like the combat music. It's good. But at the same time, I've heard it so many times that I was like, yep, I've had enough of this. So I always just shut off the in-game music. But now I can leave the in-game music on and have the combat music not play. And I think that's a very good quality of life change that they made.
That was neat, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we got some new emotes as well. I haven't seen any of these new emotes yet. Has anyone played with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I read through them, and I saw some video of them, and I quite liked what I saw.
So these were emotes. These were emotes that NPCs had that characters couldn't do. So these are sort of there's code work there involved, obviously, that they're ported over. But it was cross arms, thank you or thanks. There's an upset or facepalm where your character just that's a really great one. There's sad where you just kind of bow your head or whatever. They're good. They're good little emotes, and there's talking as well, which is really funny. You can do /talking, and your character's mouth moves like a million miles a minute. It's
and he gesticulates too with her hands.
Yeah. He moves his hands a lot, and it's pretty hilarious. It's pretty hilarious.
I used the talking one today. When I read the patch notes, I go, "Oh, new emotes. I don't care," and I moved on. And then today, I was in the fractal waiting for a group, and I clicked on my pet, and I typed / I turned my character so that I was facing my pet, and I typed /talk, and my character was sitting there talking to the pet there for a second, and I kind of chuckled to myself, and I said, "Oh, you idiot, you just said you'd never use this, and you just used it after one day." So my initial reaction was, I don't care about emotes, and then I immediately used them.
Awesome. So any other QOL changes we want to go through? I think that's the major ones, and I can't remember the others off the top of my head.
I mean, account-wide recipes, or did we already hit that one?
Maybe.
I mean, the amount of times I've gotten a recipe as like a reward or something on a character, and I'm like, oh, this isn't my crafting character, and so then that adds, I have to go put it in the bank, and so it's just nice to be able to double click it and know that it goes to my whole account.
Yeah.
I cleared out 2 rows of my bank because of this. I was like, double click all the things. Nice. I was really happy about that.
Awesome.
This would have saved me a lot of gold, time, and effort probably a year or two ago. I happen to delete and make characters quite often. Mm-hmm. And I have in the past, I know it sounds crazy, but I have in the past had, let's say, an artificer who's maxed out, who has special recipes, etc., and I delete them, so I lose all that stuff. And that was a difficult decision to make, because then you got to go buy the recipes again on whoever your new artificer is, etc. Now you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You can just... Everybody learns the recipes. You don't have to worry about, does this person have it or does this person have it. As long as they have that training up, then you don't have to worry about it. Everybody knows all the rest. It's account wide. It's an account unlock. I just love account unlocks for the game.
Next stop, account crafting, please.
That would be amazing.
That would be great.
It would.
Deletaholics are safe.
yeah.
Okay, so we shall briefly cover our final topic, that was the dev AMA that happened. I think it was the day of the patch, right? They did it at the same time.
Yeah.
And so Dulphy kindly put together kind of a summary of everything that went on. We've got some of the, I guess, points down here. So I think one of the interesting things was that it took 5 months to complete the new Chaos Isles fractal.
Yeah, they said start to finish 5 months.
Yeah, which is a pretty big chunk of time for just one fractal.
It's an interesting insight into game design for people like like me, who don't have any idea. Like, I've never done anything like that, so that surprised me. But yeah, it's very interesting.
It makes me nervous because they reused a lot of art for that one. So how long is it going to take if they want to make a whole new one?
Yeah,
That's a good question. And I had seen a question too about, for the revamped ones, for like the Snowblind and the Swamp, those take 2 to 3 months to do a revamp like that. So I think it's good to keep it into perspective of what you can expect on future releases. If a release is 2 or 3 months out, maybe you can expect 1 or 2 fractals to get a rework, to get a refresher. But you're probably going to have to wait 2+ updates to see a brand new fractal. The good news is they do have a dedicated fractal team now, which they didn't have a year ago. So that's the positive side of that, I guess.
Like, I think what we're looking at is maybe 1 to 2 fractal updates a year.
Yeah, it's about accurate. It's about right.
Yeah.
I think, so this going back 5 months obviously does include time that like the raid team was still working on raids. So now that raids are finished, maybe
raids and fractals are separate.
Exactly.
Those teams are separate. So the raid team is working on a new raid. The rumor is that they're starting work on a new raid. How long it takes them to make a new raid will be really interesting as well, because we don't really have a time frame for that. Part of the work for the first raid incomplete, at least the first raid wing, was done during Heart of Thorns, or at least at the end of Heart of Thorns development, right? And some of those assets were reused from old data mined maps that just never even made it into the game. It's going to be really interesting going forward to see how long it takes for the next raid to come out. And like Aaron was saying, probably 2 brand new fractals a year. Not the worst thing ever, but it does mean that that story moves at a much slower pace than some might prefer, I guess.
So,
And both the fractal and the raid teams are pretty small, right?
yeah. I was going to say, so speaking of raids, do you think we would see another raid before the next expansion, or do you think maybe it may be like a one per expansion thing? 'Cause I think we touched on this last episode, me and Aaron. I'd like to see, you know, more than one raid per expansion. I don't know how feasible that is.
I think so. People keep asking, are we going to see a raid before the end of the year? And they're saying it's not off the table yet, which means maybe a possibility. And as much as I want a new raid, because we're going to talk about legendary armor in a minute, I think it's more likely that next year sometime, maybe February. January is such a slow month. I think February we could see an update, and that could see probably a new raid. February, March next year could start to see the beginning of a new raid. So I do think we're going to see a complete raid or two between expansions, because who knows when the next expansion is going to be exactly, right?
Yeah.
That'll probably be another year off at the very least, or probably pretty close to it. So yeah, I think we'll probably see like 2 raids in between, you know, an expansion or so, and I don't think that's that terrible. I don't think that's that bad.
Yeah,
You mean raids or wings?
Raids.
as
So
a
you know,
whole, yeah.
and
Okay.
they've said before too that, you know, every raid doesn't have to be 3 wings. It could be a one-off small raid where it just has 1 wing. It could have 2 wings. It could have 4 wings. Like, you know, there's not a limit necessarily on the number of wings a raid could have. We could get, if you want to take World of Warcraft as sort of an example, you could have and this is a really old one, but you could have an Onyxia-like raid where she was a single encounter, but she was, you know, like a large, not necessarily a world boss. Some people who play WoW might argue that she's
Very
not
intricate
a raid encounter.
fight.
But yeah, you could have like, and I don't know that they're going to go this way, but you could have a Lazarus raid at some point where it's just really Lazarus. It doesn't have to be 3 wings up to Lazarus necessarily, right? Depending on how they want to do that. And I'm not saying that they will do that with Lazarus. I don't know that they will. But just as an example, a big boss in a raid-like instance doesn't necessarily have to be 3 wings.
Yeah, as long
And the
as
instance doesn't even have to be new art, or it could be in an existing place in the game as well. And that would be good for them.
Like, for me as a raider, I care most about it being like challenging, engaging content that keeps me, you know, sustained. Because most of my time in Guild Wars 2, certainly up until, you know, 2 days ago, was spent just raiding. So for me, it's all about, you know, the gameplay and how challenging it is, and how I would love to say, like, see future raids be like amp up the difficulty from what we've seen in this current one. Purely because, like, coming from, you know, raiding in other games, it's, you know, having people be able to clear an entire wing in like 24 hours is, for me, I consider that like too easy as a raid. You know, it should be something that takes groups, you know, a good at least few days to be able to like have the first groups clear, in my opinion at least. So I would love to see a bit more challenging raids in the future, but yeah, I mean, anything I guess is good.
Yeah, so since people are asking basically when do you think we're going to see another raid, I think the biggest wild card right now in determining when we're going to get content is we don't know how many episodes are going to be in this Living World season, do we?
No.
Like, we don't know if it's going to be 8 again, and with a 2 to 3 month release cycle, that's a major factor in like when we get content, right? Because if it's another 8 episode season, we're not going to be seeing an expansion until 2018, you know, probably. So I don't know. I don't know, but I do agree with you guys that we'll get another raid before an X-Pack. Definitely.
Mo had said something interesting in his statement, and he sort of reiterated this in the Ask Me Anything, in that it's not guaranteed, so please don't put the stamp of, yes, it has to happen, but he wants to see 6 releases. He wants to see about 6 releases a year for Living World stuff. That doesn't necessarily mean that the whole season will be 6 episodes, but I think there's some indicator there that he says he doesn't want downtime anymore. We just came out of a drought that they didn't want to have, but it was unavoidable because they had to restructure all the teams. They had to make sure that this doesn't happen again like it did with Heart of Thorns. You know, we had a drought, then expansion, then drought, now we're here.
Now the
He doesn't
ball
want
is
that
rolling.
right. He doesn't want that to happen anymore, and he feels like, hopefully, we won't have to endure that anymore. Now, we're going to get a release every 2 to 3 months, and that will have some story in it. It will have quality of life things. That'll have whatever is available, whatever is ready at the time. This sort of excludes World vs. World because that's a separate topic, but you know, that's what they hope to do. So sometimes it'll be 2 months away, sometimes it'll be 3 months away, but that's what you can sort of expect. And if you look at like a calendar and you try and pace it out, like, well, this might be 2 and this might be 3, and you can kind of guess a little bit as to like when we might see an announcement for the next expansion. And that's, you know, if you're looking at 6 episodes, we've had 1, 5 times 3, could be 15 months away at this point, could be a little bit less than that, but it gives you sort of a rough timetable as to what you can expect, maybe.
I think that's the biggest thing, is having this kind of timetable in place, you know, whereas before it was just like not knowing, you know, when's new content coming out, and when, you know, because for a long time, for people who didn't raid like Aaron, there was virtually, you know, not a lot to do in game, right? And even
I didn't play for like probably April through July. I just played other games because I didn't have any motivation to play, really.
Exactly. And for people, even people who did raid, you know, once you've got that encounter down, it becomes, you know, just a thing you'll do for like a couple of hours a week. It doesn't, you know, sustain you like, you know, constant regular updates do.
Sure.
So I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing what comes next, and, you know, this kind of pattern that we get into.
Yep.
And so we touched upon legendary armor earlier. So still no updates on legendary armor. Is in the works. It's still confirmed to be, I think it's 150 insights you will need for it.
Yes.
So,
100% on that. They're not going to change that, he said.
And I think, didn't Mo say they wanted to have it, you be able to like preview it in the wardrobe before they released it, so they could like get feedback on it?
Right. It wasn't Mo. It's whoever, I guess whoever's working on it. It's not just one person, obviously. But what they want to do is they're not done with the final legendary armor just yet, which is a little bit concerning. But when it is complete, they want to put it in the wardrobe so that you can see it. Does this mean really though that they're gonna let people look at it, and if the majority of the player, let's say the majority of the vocal player base is like, this is the worst armor ever, I don't like, I mean, it's so subjective, right? But
guarantee that will happen.
If there's a big outcry, are they really going to go back to the drawing board? And
you have to, like,
I don't think they would. I don't think they would. It's too much work.
I mean, they've promised this like epic legendary armor, and if, you know, if they release it and then everyone's like, well, that's not worth going for, you know, like, it's just a total fail, right? Surely if people don't like it, you have to make it right.
First of all, I think people still go for it just for the stat swapping ability. I think that's, if they don't like how it looks, that might be enough of a draw still. But just to go back to what we were talking to at the very beginning of the show, how long it takes them to make armor sets, like they have to make they have to redesign this whole thing. Oh man!
So this is what really kind of hurts, right? So we know that there's 3 sets of armor. There's the pre armor, which is what we have now. There's the precursor armor, which we don't know what that looks like yet, and then there's legendary armor. So technically, that's 3 sets of armor at 6 months apiece. You're looking at 1.5 years worth of armor work to finish this armor. And who knows when they started it? I mean, you would have hoped that they started it during Heart of Thor's development, but we don't actually know.
Which is why
someone says 9 months. Maybe I'm wrong on my 6 to 9 months, but even still, that's
somewhere
kind of
in that window. Yeah, and I think, which is why I think they're probably going to play it pretty safe with the design of this new legendary armor. Like, it's probably going to be lots of particle effects. You know, it's going to be very flashy. But I don't think, like, they're not going to make the Dreamer the armor set, right? They know not to do that. Yeah, they know not to make a Dreamer armor set.
Do they know? They have a pony gun or bow or whatever the heck it is. That every time I'm grouped with somebody that has that, I immediately want to shut the game off. Do they know not to do that? I don't know that they do.
Like, I hope they know that Dreamer armor is not going to go over very well with most of the player base.
I think they know. I mean, the new legendaries, for as few of them as there are not moot or pony bows or whatever, right? They're more refined things.
Yeah, I mean, they did name it Chuka and Champawat, but let's get over. I mean, that's as long it looks okay, so I can get over that.
And one other thing about the armor is, no matter what they do, no matter what, people are going to go nuts and hate it, because
I hope I hate it.
people
Then I don't have
who
to get it.
people who like that won't say anything. The
Yeah.
only people who talk are the people who are unhappy. So no matter what they do, they're going to have a bunch of Reddit posts about how ArenaNet doesn't know what they're doing, and oh my God, this is the worst thing. Why don't you just come kill my dog or something? People are going to complain, and so there's no way they're going to change it, because they should know by now that no matter what they do, people will complain.
Yeah, nobody's making a Reddit post like, "Oh my God, I love the new legendary armor so much." You know, nobody's doing that.
No, they're
So
busy playing the game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you there. The people who like it are going to play, and they'll see those numbers. But yeah, just due to the crazy amount of dev time on armor that was revealed in this AMA, I don't think they'd change it. I think they'd just be like, "Well, that's what we got for you."
Oh. I mean,
Enjoy.
I just really hope they just don't shunt like the Azure and Chart races. I really, really hope that this one's designed properly for all of them and looks
Me too.
decent on them.
Yeah, I hope they put the proper time into that for sure.
Yeah. Guess we'll find out in however long it's going to take.
2019.
Yeah. So is there anything else we wanted to bring up from the AMA? So that's all the notes I've got on it.
Honestly, I didn't see a lot of useful information in it besides the armor and raid stuff.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the armor is the biggest blow to me in general, just because I'm not the biggest fan of outfits. Outfits are only in the gem store anyway, which I don't have a problem with. Just you can leave them in the gem store. I don't care. Some outfits are cool, don't get me wrong, but I love armor pieces in the sense that I can, if I don't like a particular piece, I either can hide it or I can swap it out or whatever the case is, and we're just not, except for expansions, we're really not going to get full armor sets.
Like we might get one armor set with Living World or something.
Mo
like that.
did say that armor pieces are possible and viable, because then it's only a single piece. A helmet, for example, gloves or shoulder pads, which are kind of prominent, right? That stuff is kind of viable, and I understand. What I would really love, if they're going to go the route of, singular pieces, okay, I understand. As much as I don't like it, I do understand. Then give me a helmet, and then give me shoulders, and then give me gloves. Like every release, make it be, like they did with Luminescent a little bit. You know what I mean? Eventually, it built an armor set.
Yeah.
I would love to see them go that route instead of nothing at all. You know what I mean? Like we got a crown this time, which is pretty cool. Some people don't like it, but that's fine.
I'm not a crown guy.
There you go.
It's something.
Next time, give us boots or shoulder or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think that, and of course, I'm not an artist, and I'm not a computer programmer, and I don't work for ArenaNet. But my guess would be is that legs, pants, and chest pieces especially are probably the biggest culprits in problems when fitting to different characters. Obviously, Chartail creates problems with the pants. And the Asura are sort of shorts and wide. Their heads probably create problems with the helmets. So yeah, I don't know.
Yep. As Bremimon says, maybe legendary armor has race-specific looks like cultural does.
Man.
That would be a lot of work to do. Like,
Yeah. That would be really awesome. Boy,
I don't see that happening. That'd
No.
be cool.
It would be
but
cool.
Probably not.
I mean, add like 2 years to development time.
Somebody suggested, I don't know how you guys feel about this, somebody suggested that maybe what they should do is drop the weight restriction on armors so that would give players much more variety when mixing things up.
That's a fantastic idea.
I think it's a good idea, but would it look weird just seeing like an elementalist in like full plate mail running around?
I have an unpopular opinion here that I'm going to say. I like outfits. I think they're really cool. I don't pay Guild Wars a subscription fee, so I don't mind throwing some money at them every once in a while for the outfits. The metal ones are always the ones that look the best, I feel like. And so right now I've got a necromancer running around in I don't remember which one it is, but it's got like fire coming out of the shoulders and stuff.
The Balthazar one, I think.
Not that one.
Or the
It's
Lunatic Court one.
The Sentinel.
Sentinel one. Okay.
Yeah, the Sentinel one. And it looks like plate, but I think it looks cool even though he's supposed to be wearing cloth. I don't really see that as a problem. What I see as a problem is that they would have to then go through and be like, all right, well, how much toughness is on this piece of armor? We have to change that. So what they would have to do then probably is say, let's change this to a different stat, and then heavy classes get double from this than light classes do, or something like that. I don't know.
Just make it a wardrobe unlock, not necessarily
I was
that
gonna say.
piece.
Oh
of
yeah,
armor,
well in
so-
that case, yeah, there you go. On a wardrobe unlock. See, on ArenaNet, we're solving your problems for you.
I like outfits too, but my problem is the same as Inks. I like to mix and match my armor, and outfits don't allow for that. So that's my main beef with them. But I agree that I don't have a problem with them existing and being in the gem store and stuff.
Now, if they had, and this is probably way more complicated than it needs to be, but if they could add something where I could wear an outfit, so let's take Fallout 4, for example. You can wear an outfit, your jumpsuit or whatever, and then you can put armor pieces on top of it. So I can wear my outfit, whatever it happens to be, and then I could say, okay, well, I want to show the helmet, and it would just skin over, it would remove the outfit helmet and put my regular helmet on, or something to that effect. That's probably a lot of coding work, but I mean that's another possible solution maybe, and that would make outfits perhaps more appealing. Where then like I don't like the gloves on this outfit, so either I'll hide the gloves or I can wear whatever. It's probably not that easy to do. It's easier for me to say than it is to put into action. But
Because then you're more or less just developing an armor set again. If you
Yeah,
have to do it
exactly.
Piece by piece. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
right.
If only.
Well, maybe we never know. We'll see. So that's about it from the AMA then. Anything else you guys wanted to cover in this episode? Because we're kind of at the end.
Just that the Tengu are obviously coming this season.
Really?
Playable Tengu.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That would surprise me a great deal. that would really, especially with the armor talk we just had, that would really surprise me. They do use the char model. The Tengu use the char model, but boy, that would be interesting.
I'm calling it now. Tengu this season.
Man, I would love Tengu.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll hold you to that one at the end of this season.
Okay, I'll buy you a steak dinner, Rowan.
Okay.
It's a safe bet because he's never coming to America.
All right, so that's about it for this episode then. Before we head off, just some kind of housekeeping. So in terms of GuildMag content over the next week, we have more streams on the way. So next Tuesday, I don't think there's anything more this week, unless I'm wrong, Aaron. No. Okay. So next Tuesday, we may or may not have Sandra's usual level up stream at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/GuildMag, which is usually where Sandra, one of our people at GuildMag, runs around on a new free-to-play account, leveling up. I think she's doing a Mesmer at the moment.
Mesmer and Revenant.
Yeah, and so it's a great stream for new players, or if you just want somewhere to hang out. On Wednesdays, Aaron?
I do, on Wednesdays, I do a stream called Traversing Tyria, where we go and we complete a map. We've actually only got 4 maps left until full map completion, doing Frostgorge Sound next Wednesday. So come hang out with me while I map complete. Hearts are the worst.
That's again, that's at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And then next Thursday, as always, it's a new time for this podcast, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. GMT. So we're here now every Thursday, not every Sunday. And these guys, so Inks, when do you stream? Give us your...
There's a schedule on my Twitch page. I'm definitely live every Friday. And then the rest of the week kind of revolves around how my real life is going. But I usually stream 3 to 4 days a week. generally speaking. Fridays is always a must, but the other days sort of rotate around a little bit depending on what's going on.
Awesome. And Run Jump Stomp?
I usually stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Friday is usually a Guild Wars 2 focused stream. I'm more of a variety streamer, so I stream other stuff as well. But Friday and Sunday is almost always Guild War 2 stuff. This week, though, I got to pick my son up from camp tomorrow, so I won't be able to do a Friday stream. But we're doing Veil Guardian. If you want to see the Veil Guardian punch me in the face over and over and over again, come by on Sunday at 3 Eastern.
Nice. So that is twitch.tv/MMOINKS and twitch.tv/RunJumpStomp. And for us, we are at GuildMag.com recruiting writers, editors, designers, streamers, all sorts of roles available. So if you fancy coming and volunteering on the oldest Guild Wars 2 fan sites, we've been around for over 6 years now, there is a position for you. You can go to guildmag.com/join or email valiant@guildmag.com and we can discuss, whatever. And that's about it from this episode. So a big thank you to Inks and RunJumpStomp for joining us. Apologies for the audio issues we seem to have had throughout the episode. I'm not quite sure what was causing them, but we will fix them for episode 52. I can promise you that. If you missed any of this episode, it will be up on guildmag.com later and on our YouTube channel. We're also on iTunes and on Google Play, so a variety of places to get your GuildMag podcast fill. And hopefully Aaron and I at least will see you in a week's time. So bye everybody, and thank you for joining us. Bye guys.
Bye guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.